If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Adeptus Custodes December 13th, 2025 RTT list. This video is taking a look at the Hubtown Hammer Custodes list that I'm taking to an RTT in December 13th, 2025. February 2026, I may try a GT. My back injury makes the 2-day tournaments quite hard. That back injury can sometimes cause setbacks in the channel too, so I try not to do too many things that can cause me to re-injure it. But I do want to try going to a GT in 2026. The whole Hubtown Hammer Battle Report crew is heading to this RTT. Hopefully I do not see them at the table until the later rounds. I'm taking a Lines of the Emperor Adeptus Custodes list. A Warpbane Task Force Grey Knights list is coming in at a close second though. We will take a look at the list, a Stratagem tier list, and a unit breakdown, as well as a game plan for this list. Here is my Lines of the Emperor 2000 point list, and it comes to 2000 points exactly. My Warlord is Trajann Valoris. For my other characters, I do have an Allarus Shield Captain with the Admoni Mortis enhancement and a Castellan Axe. Battle line, I do have 2 units of 4 Custodian Guard. All of those Custodian Guard have Guardian Spears. And I do have a unit of 5 Custodian Guard. That entire 5-man will be a Sword and Board unit. For the other datasheets, I do have 2 Caladius Grav-tanks with the twin heavy Arachnus Blaze Cannons, 2 Allarus Terminators with the Guardian Spears to join up with the Allarus Shield Captain, and a unit of 5 Witchseekers. For my allied units, I do have Inquisitor Draxus, a Callidus Assassin, and 2 Armiger Warglaives with the Melta Gun, Thermal Spears, and Reaper Chain Cleaver. That's my 2000 point competitive Lines of the Emperor list. Let's take a look at a Stratagem tier list, and then a unit breakdown. We will quickly look at the Adeptus Custodes army rule, as well as the detachment rule for the Lines of the Emperor Detachment. Our army rule is Martial Kata, or in the fight phase, as long as the unit has the Martial Kata ability, we can either select Sustain Hits 1 or Lethal Hits with our melee weapons. Martial Kata may not be the most exciting rule in the game, it sure is effective though. Our units already hit on a 2+, throw Sustain Hits 1 on to never miss on average, Lethal Hits to tear apart monster and vehicle units. The Custodian Guard and Allarus can access Reroll the Wound roll, paired with a detachment rule for +1 to hit and wound. For this list, Sustain Hits 1 is going to be my choice 90% of the time, since 90% of my list can reroll the wound roll in melee combat. Against all odds is the detachment rule. Each time a Adeptus Custodes unit from your army makes an attack, if there's no other friendly units within 6 inches of that unit, add 1 to the hit roll and add 1 to the wound roll. Friendly units mean our Psychono units and even our Armiger units. Any friendly unit within 6 inches will turn off this detachment rule. This is my favorite detachment rule in all 6 detachments. It adds shooting and melee potential while taking some skill to set up. Like our army rule, the Custodian Guard and Allarus gaining access to reroll wounds adds even more shooting potential to the list. Double tap with the Custodian Guard for an even more pew-pew action. Then charge into the enemy units, blend them into a red mist with Sustain Hits 1 with +1 to hit and wound with possible reroll wounds. Next up is the Stratagem tier list for my Golden Knights list. Bottom tier will be the stratagems I don't really need to save CP for. Middle tier will be the stratagems I want to keep in mind for my CP. Top tier are the stratagems I always want to make sure I have a CP in the bank for. Starting off with bottom tier, we have Unleash the Lions. Unleash the Lions will be important to our scoring and screening potential. I have this in bottom tier because we're only going to be using this once per game since I only have 1 Allarus unit in my list, not a stratagem we need to be saving CP in the bank for. Next up is Peerless Warrior for 1 CP. This can be great when against a very character heavy list that relies on those characters to buff the unit they are attached to. Other than that, this is a CP I would save for a different stratagem. On to the middle tier, we have Defiant to the Last for 1 CP. When we have threats of incoming charges, having a CP to use Fight on Death can be the difference from taking the unit out with us on our hit back or the opponent deciding it's not worth the risk of charging our unit. Another stratagem in our middle tier is Swift as the Eagle for 1 CP. This is a stratagem that will not come up every turn. The D6 movement makes it unreliable to be a top tier stratagem. If a low roll can get us onto objective or steal it, or possibly move out of line of sight of other enemy units, it can be worth the 1 CP. don't use this in hopes of rolling a 6. It's better to use this when I know a low roll will get my unit to where I want it to be. Our last tier is our top tier. These are the stratagems I always want to make sure I have CP for. Our first one is Maneuver and Fire for 1 CP. Fallback, Shoot and Charge is a fantastic stratagem. A stratagem we want to have CP for in the bank when I need to fall back a unit. We want this list shooting as much as possible to soften up those enemy units. There will be a wall of Custodes damage 2 shots thrown at our enemy from this list. Our last stratagem in the last top tier is Gilded Champion for 1 CP. This is the best stratagem in the detachment. Great to reset Trajan's Moment Shackle and the Allarus Shield Captain's ability to turn all incoming attacks damage to 1. I always want to have at least 1 CP in the bank to use this stratagem. That's the stratagem tier list for my Lines of the Emperor 2000 point competitive list. Let's move on to a unit breakdown and discuss why I took these units in my list. We will start the unit breakdown with our Warlord, Trajann Valoris, attached to 4 Custodian Guard. Base Trajann is not that much better than Valerian in the fight phase. The Ad Monte Mortis Axe Captain is even better than base Trajann. 6 attacks, hitting on a 2+, Strength 10, AP 2, Damage 3. It is the Strength 10 and AP 2 that make him not as strong as he could be. There's nothing fancy such as Devastating Wounds or Sustain Hits 2, just a plain old axe that hits kinda hard. This is where one of Trajan's abilities come into play. Moment Shackle. This will double the amount of attacks with the Watcher's Axe. 12 attacks with the Watcher's Axe is a real threat to most units in the game. The Army rule gives us Sustain Hits 1, we could end up with 12+ attacks. We could also use Moment Shackle to give Trajan's model a 2+ invulnerable for the fight phase only. The downside is that we can only use this once per game. Lines of the Emperor being able to reset this ability once per game is the #1 reason I take Trajann in my Lions list. His other ability, Captain General, this ability is very underwhelming for the Captain General of the Adeptus Custodes. Ignoring negative hit and ballistic weapon skill modifiers does not seem like something Trajann Valoris should be giving his unit. It used to be ignore all negative modifiers in the index before the codex. The Captain General does help against factions such as the Death Guard, who can throw out -1 to hit on our units. The Custodian Guard attached to Trajann will create a much more damage-focused unit. They have the same Guardian Spear weapon profile as Wardens. The Wardens can use axes, but most of the time you see them with Guardian Spears. 5 attacks, hitting on a 2+, Strength 7, AP 2, Damage 2. 4 Guardian Spears with no Vexil in this unit. I want this unit to strike fear into my opponent. If the enemy is on an objective, Trajann wants them dead. To that end, I may even start this unit in reserves. It could be a perfect rapid ingress counter threat, or even be used to threaten the enemy expansion objective. It is the Custodian Guard abilities that turn this into a damaged unit. Stand Vigil, this is what makes Trajan's 12 attacks from Moment Shackle much more reliable. He is only Strength 10, so reroll the wound rolls if on objective we control, or even reroll the wound roll of 1, really helps into targets above toughness 10. And like I said, we do have to be on objective we control, or it is only reroll wounds of 1. Get this unit on objective we control to boost their damage potential. A lot of the times though, with our Strength 7 Guardian Spears and Strength 10 Watcher's Axe, with +1 to the wound, we will be wounding on a 2+, so reroll wounds of 1 will not be that bad at all. The other Custodian Guard ability, Sentinel Storm, shoot twice once per game, is usually a nice little bonus. The Guardian Spears are 2 shots, Strength 4, AP 1, Damage 2. The damage is nice, the Strength and AP not so much. Trajann does have his Eagle Scream, 2 shots, Strength 5, AP 2, Damage 3. Shooting those twice is a nice bonus until we add the Lines of the Emperor Detachment rule against all odds. +1 to hit and wound, this does work in the shooting phase as well. Now these are an actual threat. Wounding Space Marines on a 3+ with our Guardian Spears, or 2+ with Trajann's Eagle Scream. There are some interesting things we can do with the Defiant to the Last stratagem, the Fight on Death. The Custodian Guard will fight on death on a 4+. There is no army rule. We cannot use the army rule when we fight on death, since the unit is not being selected, it's just the models that are fighting. Trajann fights on death on a 2+. If Trajann gets charged but he's low on wounds, like 2 or 3, we could use Moment Shackle for the 2+ invulnerable, maybe he will live. If it is looking like the Captain General will go down even with a 2+ invulnerable, why not select 12 attacks instead and use 1 CP for Fight on Death. Trajann dies, we roll a 2+, if we get lucky, he takes out the attacking unit with him. Lines of the Emperor is easily the best detachment for Trajann Valoris. Our next unit is Valerian with the 5 Custodian Guard with a sword and board. One of them does have the Vexilla, Shield, and Misericordia. The first thing to note about Valerian is his melee weapon is AP3. AP3 melee is rare in the Adeptus Custodes without a buff. The Blade Champion and Alea are the only AP3 melee we have in our codex. His turn and unmodified roll to a 6 once per game can be useful for a lethal hit or a save. The big reason to take Valerian is the Golden Laurels ability. -1 to the AP of incoming melee attacks can cripple the melee output of some enemy units or even factions. Now I'm sure you are all asking, why all the sword and board? Originally I had 5 wardens, I changed some things around and I had to drop to 4 wardens to fit the Warglaives. Then I thought 5 Custodian Guard are cheaper than 4 wardens. Why do I need the wardens in my list? I want a unit with high survivability to join Valerian. I want to use this unit to push and hold the center objective. Can I replicate 4 wardens with 5 Custodian Guard? I thought about how the wardens can be killed quite easily by damage 3 attacks without our 4+ Feel Pain ability. There have been times where I think I will be alright, I will save my 4+ Feel Pain only to lose half of my wardens from some untimely bad rolls. Each Custodian Guard unit with their sword and board will have 4 wounds each. That is 2 failed damage 3 attacks to kill 1, or 4 damage 1 attacks to kill 1 Custodian Guard. Losing the 4+ Feel Pain will hurt, but I do have 20 wounds of Custodian Guard in this unit though. What about the damage from losing the spears? To be honest, I'm not sure if there'll be that much of a damage lost. Into some units, yes, others the same or even better. Wardens have the damage 2 Guardian Spears with no rerolls for melee or shooting, while the Custodian Guard Sentinel Blades damage 2 shooting and damage 1 melee, along with reroll the wounds of 1 or the wound roll if we're an objective we control, as well as our shoot twice once per game ability. No, this unit is not 5 wardens tough, but it also will not be an easy unit to kill, especially in the fight phase. Each Custodian Guard is toughness 6 with 4 wounds each, 2+ save with a 4+ invulnerable, and OC 3 each with that Vexilla in the unit, with -1 AP in the fight phase coming from Valerian. These 5 Custodian Guard with the shields might not be quite as tough as the 4 wardens, but I still think this should be very comparable, especially comparing them to the 210 points for the 4 wardens or the 200 points for 5 Custodian Guard with a sword and board. The detachment rule encourages strong movement with extreme damage output. Valerian with a Custodian Guard with +1 to the wound and shooting is deadly. The 4 swords in my unit will have 8 total shots with a 12-inch range, double tap for 16 shots. The Sentinel Blades do have the pistol ability, means we could shoot our way out of combat if need be. If the enemy unit has one of those if you fall back desperate escape test ability, maybe we just want to try to shoot our way out instead. Valerian with a strength 8 melee is not a breakpoint that the +1 to the wound really makes a difference into vehicles and monsters. Most common vehicles and monsters are at least toughness 10. Strength 8 with +1 to the wound will still wound on a 4+ into those tougher targets. Next up is the Allarus Shield Captain with the 2 Allarus. A toughness 7 7-wound model with a 2-up save and 4+ invulnerable. Makes for a very tough character. Even when leading a unit, it is hard to precision out the Allarus Shield Captain. I thought about taking a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle with the Admoni Mortis instead. I really like my Shield Captain with the Allarus unit. I've been using the Allarus All Edition. I figured I will use the unit I know how to play better overall, plus this is a unit I really like. The Shield Captain has the Strategic Mastery ability. Unlike my usual lines of the Emperor list, I only have 1 Shield Captain with this ability. Rapid Ingress for 0 CP is a great use of this ability. Gilded Champion is one of the main reasons we see the Allarus Shield Captain in so many lists. This stratagem is what we use to reset the second ability that the Allarus Shield Captain has on the datasheet. That ability is Ormited Adamantine, being able to reduce the incoming damage of attacks to 1 for a phase. On our toughness 7 7-wound, 2-up save with a 4+ invulnerable model makes the Allarus Shield Captain very hard to take out for that 1 phase. Gilded Champion for 1 CP allows us to use this 1 more time in a game. This ability can turn dangerous shooting units into non-threats twice in game, in the lines of the Emperor Detachment. I do have Ad Monte Mortis on my Shield Captain, giving the Shield Captain 3 extra strength, 1 extra AP, and 1 extra damage on the melee weapon, and we are going to take the Castellan Axe. The Castellan Axe will have 6 attacks, strength 12, AP 2, damage 4, with sustained hits 1 or lethal hits from a Martial Kata army rule, and then +1 to hit and wound from the lines of the Emperor Detachment rule, as long as we're outside of 6 inches of other friendly units. I attached the 2 Allarus to the Allarus Shield Captain to give the unit reroll wounds into character, vehicle, and monster units. This Allarus unit will have 6 shots, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2, plus 3d6 plus blast shots of strength 4, AP 1, damage 1. Light to medium infantry or chaff will be wary of this unit. +1 to hit and wound is great on these. It makes a big difference in their shooting. Custodians have never really had a problem in the fight phase. +1 to wound lets us be even more deadly in the shooting phase. The Allarus and the 3 Custodian Guard units should cover our anti-tank shooting, while the 2 Warglaives and the 2 Grav-tanks should cover my anti-tank shooting. Next up, we have Inquisitor Draxus with 4 Custodian Guard, the best anti-infantry shooting unit we have access to. Draxus has a shooting attack and a psychic attack, and both of those can be used in the same shooting phase. Dirge Singer is 4 shots, hitting on a 3+, strength 4, AP 0, damage 2, with anti-infantry 4, devastating wounds, and assault. Psychic Tempest, her psychic attack, is 6 shots, hitting on a 3+, strength 6, AP 0, damage 2, with sustained hits 2. The 4 Guardian Spears in my unit will have 8 shots, hitting on a 2+, strength 4, AP 2, damage 2, with assault. The Against All Odds Detachment rule will add +1 to hit and wound, and Draxus loves +1 to hit since all of her attacks usually hit on a 3+. Draxus ranged attacks pair very well with the Custodian Guard abilities. Stand Vigil allows us to reroll wounds of 1 or the wound roll if we're on objective we control, and Sentinel Storm allows us a once per game shoot twice. Reroll wounds of 1 or the wound roll if on objective we control. That is perfect for getting those 2 damage anti-infantry 4 mortal wounds shots through. We can use Sentinel Storm so the whole unit can shoot twice once per game. We could shoot Dirge Singer, the Psychic Tempest, and the Guardian Spears twice in one phase with a possible reroll wounds. That would be 8 Dirge Singer shots, 12 Psychic Tempest or more since we do have sustained hits too, and 16 Guardian Spear shots. This will do some insane damage to some enemy infantry units. With +1 to hit and wound from the detachment rule, every failed save or mortal wound is going to be 2 damage. The detachment rule really powers Draxus up. I've killed Rhinos, Little Knights, and Dreadnoughts and more of this list. Rhinos only have 10 wounds, so that is 5 failed saves or 5 of those mortal wounds gone through, and that is a dead Rhino. The fact that all of these shots are damaged to really helps with the chip damage. I've had a hard time not taking Draxus or a Axe Captain in my competitive lines of the Emperor list. +1 to hit really makes a difference with her. It makes her much more reliable. Going from hitting on a 3+ to a 2+ has her ripping apart enemy infantry units. +1 to wound really helps her psychic attack smash into enemy units. The psychic attack is strength 6, so when we're attacking infantry, a lot of the time we're wounding on a 3+. Then we add that +1 to wound, we'll be wounding most infantry on a 2+ with reroll wounds of 1 with this unit. Once again, that is the psychic attack, the strength 6 psychic attack. Next, we have our 2 Caladius Grav-tanks. I love my all-infantry bike list. I did decide to take 2 Grav-tanks. I want them to screen my deployment while dealing some anti-tank damage. They will go well with the Warglaives. The opponent exposes their anti-tank to shoot a Warglaive. I may lose a 140-point Warglaive, while my Grav-tanks can now get line of sight of those enemy anti-tank units. What makes it so good is the range profile paired with the abilities. 48-inch range, 4 attacks, strength 12, AP 3, damage D6 +2, twin linked and lethal hits into monster and vehicle units. Nothing we have is even close to the same reliable damage for a vehicle unit. Grav-tanks give my list something most Custodians infantry cannot give me, reliable long-range anti-tank damage. A lot of the stratagems are able to be used on the Caladius Grav-tank. Only one seems to be useful for a big shooty tank. Maneuver and fire for 1 CP. Fallback, shoot and charge is great for getting out of combat while still being able to shoot at our full 2+ to hit. Swift as the Eagle for that D6 movement, excludes vehicles, or it would be a fantastic choice. My unit of 5 Witchseekers, our best cheap unit to gain some early board control. I only have one unit in my list. I can scout it towards the expansion objective or towards the center of the board. I find they are great for scouting 6 inches towards the center for turn 1. Without a cheap unit who can get to the center can be a big loss on points. +1 to the wound roll from the detachment rule can make these a bit more threatening into enemy infantry units. They can cause a battle shock roll for a unit hit by their torrent weapons. Not something we can rely on, but it does come up time to time. It can do things such as turn off enemy stratagems for battle shock units, or even help for secondary points such as storm hostile objective. The units become 0 OC when battle shocked. Do not forget about their battle shock test ability. For some scoring and utility, we have the Callidus Assassin, the best lone op we have access to for scoring points. Great for draining CP and ruining the opponent's plans with her 12-inch aura of add 1 to the CP cost of enemy stratagems. Her ability that allows her to put herself into reserves at the end of the enemy turn, along with the deep strike ability, is what makes her so great for secondary scoring. A unit that will have a target on its back all game though. She has the infiltrate ability, very useful for grabbing an expansion objective. We have to be careful she is not too close to the enemy to be shot by indirect fire or charge turn 1. Taking the center of the board turn 1 is great. Having the opponent move up and then kill her turn 1, not so great. I have noticed her in a lot of our Custodes competitive list. I have included her in my own competitive list as well. Now let's talk about my allied Armiger Warglaives. There are a few things to note about the Warglaives that has the potential to really help a Custodes list. Number 1 is the points. Currently, as of November 2025, the Warglaive is 140 points. 140 points is cheaper than any Custodes unit other than characters, Psychona, and a 2-model Allarus unit. Unlike Psychona units or a 2-model Allarus unit, the Warglaives have speed, shooting, and melee. Movement 12 is great for grabbing objectives turn 1 or getting early board control. Along with the 12-inch movement, it is toughness 9 with 14 wounds. Yes, knights are easier to kill now, but a Warglaive on our expansion objective can't be indirect fire or charged by a weak unit like our Witchseekers or another prosecutor unit we're trying to hold our expansion objective with. These are also OC6. They can steal objectives from the common OC5 units. The Adeptus Custodes are an elite army. There are times when we do not have something tough, fast, yet cheap enough to throw on objective turn 1. An Armiger Warglaive can solve that problem. The attack profiles are great for the Adeptus Custodes, a melta gun and a thermal spear to throw out some extra needed anti-tank threat. The melee is fantastic for the cost. If the Warglaive has charged that turn, 5 attacks hitting on a 3+, strength 10, AP 3, damage 3. We do not have much AP 3, damage 3 melee in our Custodes range. Draw storm hostile objective. We don't want to use an expensive Warden's unit. Throw a Warglaive onto that objective. Or any secondary or primary denial we do not want to commit an expensive unit to. The melee weapon, the Reaper Chain Cleaver, has a sweep profile. This time 2 extra attacks on the charge. 10 attacks hitting on a 3+, strength 8, AP 2, damage 1. The opponent will try to use move blocks and chaff units to pull out the Custodes out of position, or slow them down. Instead of using our expensive Custodes units, we can use these Warglaives to clear out these enemy units. The Warglaives may even still be there after the enemy counterattack. They are hard to kill with small arms fire. They may need to expose their more expensive anti-tank units to take out my Warglaives, leaving themselves open for a counterattack from some Grav-tanks, all for a current 140 points each. I have been testing this list against other channel factions, Salamanders, Imperial Knights, and Grey Knights, even against a few of the battle report factions we have, such as the World Eaters. The Warglaives have been doing exactly what I wanted them to do: deny primary, tank shots, and do a surprisingly good amount of ranged melee anti-tank. Sometimes I can combine a Warglaive with Grav-tank to take out a target, instead of overkilling that target by using 2 Grav-tanks. Divide and conquer. Movement 12 really helps them get to where I want them to be. Advance turn 1 to easily grab my expansion objective, or some mid-board secondary draws. And like I said, it is 140 points, but compared to some of our other models, that's not really that much. 4 Custodian Guard is still 160 points, while an Armiger Warglaive is 140 points. It all depends on how we're using these Armiger Warglaives. They're not really used for damage and attack, they're used for primary denial and other utility. Now for a general game plan for this list. This will be a high damage list that does not have a lot of room for mistakes. There's no wardens for a 4+ funeral pain, no sweeping advance from a bike captain. Deployment and movement will be very important to my list. Draxus will be for the most part guard the home objective, even more so if she has some good sight lines from the home objective, even if I do have to string the unit out while still being within range of that objective to reroll or wound roll from being attached to the Custodian guard. The tanks along with the assassin should help screen my deployment when needed. If the reserves threat is gone, push the tanks into the mid board. The Warglaives will help get early board control and objective control while taking hits that could be killing our Custodian guard. Warglaives will be great to draw out enemy anti-tank. They can help kill the enemy anti-tank along with the Grav-tanks in the list. Draxus, killing any infantry units who get within range of her unit. Trajann and the shield captain and Allarus will be in reserves, or at the very least the shield captain will be in reserves. Ideally I have them both in reserves, that way turn 2 I could rapid ingress Trajann, then in turn 3 I could rapid ingress the Terminator captain. Lots of damage and rerolls in the list. The Witchseekers can scout 6 inches towards the center of the board in hopes for some early turn 1 points. Valerian with the 5 Custodian guard will wait until the enemy will have a hard time removing his unit, then claim the center of the board as his new home. Ideally, I have destroyed most of the units who can seriously threaten my Valerian unit. Force the enemy to come into the blender that is the Custodes combat. AP 1 damage 1 melee attacks will have a hard time tickling Valerian's unit to death. We also have another possible 12 OC on the center from our Warglaives if they're still alive by the end game. We will finish the video with some final thoughts. What do you think of the list? No wardens, no bikes, only Custodian guard and Warglaives. It is a bit different than some of the what's winning right now lists for the Adeptus Custodes. I still feel when played right, making some smart moves, this can be a very potent list. I will admit this is more of an anti-tank list, and I have already made some changes to this list that I do believe has made it much more potent. It should be featured in some upcoming battle reports over the next month or so, as well as a few more lists of some updates of how this list is doing, as well as going into more of a game plan as I've played more games. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Channel members gain early access and access to the channel Discord. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.